2025 was the year of being healthier for Bay Area and Silicon Valley real estate. And a year ago, I called that shot. Today, I'm gonna walk you through what I predicted for 2025, what actually happened, and what that means for you going into 2026. Buckle up. I'm Keith Walker, and today I'm putting my 2025 Bay Area housing predictions to the test. No speculation, just receipts. When I did my 25 forecast, I said we'd see a more measured market. Not a crash, not a rocket ship, but a healthier, more balanced pace. Looking back at interest rates, inventory, sales volume, prices, and the investment market, the big picture is that's exactly what we lived through, even if some parts surprised us more than others. My prediction for interest rates is that they would stabilize in roughly the 6.4 to 6.7% range, with most of the volatility behind us and buyers slowly accepting the new normal. What actually happened? For most of the year, that's where we lived, give or take some weekly wiggles. And as buyers realized sub 3% was history, more of them stopped waiting for a miracle and started making moves. So how did I do? I was pretty on the nose. The call wasn't that rates would drop, but that they'd calm down enough for people to emotionally normalize and re-engage. My prediction on inventory, that it would tick up about 10 to 15% versus the prior year, moving us closer to balance, but the low rate lock-in effect would still keep a lid on supply. So what actually happened? Inventory did increase, enough for buyers to actually have choices again, yet nowhere near a true buyer's market, especially in core Silicon Valley and similar high demand pockets. How did I do? I was directionally right. More selection, a bit less frenzy, and the lock-in effect stayed very real. Sellers with 2 to 3% rate loans still needed a compelling life reason to sell their house. My sales prediction would be that they would rebound 8 to 10% year over year as pent-up buyers and sellers finally adapted to current conditions. So what happened? Transaction volume did pick up from the lows, but the rebound was choppy. Certain submarkets and price bands saw a clear jump in activity, while others stayed sluggish. How did I do there? I was partially right. The thaw happened, but it wasn't evenly distributed. Need-based moves, marriage, kids, divorce, relocation, inheritance, drove most of the increase, not speculative trading. Additionally, smaller bedroom condos and townhomes were pretty stagnant. Let's talk prices. Nationally, experts were calling for about 3 to 4% appreciation, and I said, don't be surprised if the Bay Area outperforms that, especially with tech salaries running roughly 20% higher than the national average. So what happened? Prices held firm and in many cases moved up, particularly for move-in ready homes in good school districts and commute locations. The region once again outpaced a lot of the country, even while buyers complained about affordability. So how did it do with prices? Very close. This was never about a unicorn spike. It was about steady appreciation supported by high incomes, limited land, and ongoing demand for proximity to tech. As far as seasonal trends, I predicted that most of the appreciation would show up between February and June. Inventory peaks, which had been stretching later since the pandemic, would again push into October or November. Acting sooner would let buyers capture appreciation and then refinance later. A win-win play. So what happened? Spring was, again, the sweet spot for appreciation and competition, with well-priced listings seeing the strongest offers. Inventory did build into the fall, giving late-year buyers more leverage, but those who bought earlier often picked up both equity gains and later refinance opportunities. So how I did there? The timing call was solid. The advice to act sooner rather than wait for some hypothetical perfect rate turned out to be one of the smartest plays our clients made this year, while many others sat in disbelief and are still waiting for another correction. What about those incentives for new construction? My prediction is that the incentives would help, but since new builds are less than 10% of local sales, they wouldn't suddenly fix affordability. And what actually happened is the incentives and programs made some headlines and they created pockets of opportunity, but the fundamental math didn't change. New construction is still a very small slice of our market and can't single-handedly solve supply or affordability. How I did there? Spot on. Newer builds were helpful around the margins, but not a silver bullet for the Bay Area. And my prediction for overall trends. Buyers would benefit from increased inventory and less cutthroat competition without seeing a price collapse. Sellers would need sharper preparation, pricing, and marketing to stand out in a more normal competitive field. Rising inventory would not automatically mean falling prices. So what happened? That's exactly what we saw. Buyers had more room to negotiate terms, credits, and contingencies in certain segments, but clean, well-presented homes still sold quickly and often with strong offers. Sellers who skipped prep or overreached on price sat on the market, while those who treated it like a professional launch were rewarded. So report card there, this was one of the most accurate themes. Strategy mattered more than ever on both sides. What about the investment market and rents? My prediction there was that rents would slow but remain strong. Prices would hold. Long-term fundamentals for Bay Area residential investment would remain solid, just not in a unicorn way. What happened? Rent growth cooled from its post-pandemic surge, but rents didn't fall off a cliff, and most well-bought properties continued to pencil as long-term holds. Investors who underwrote conservatively and focused on fundamentals, location, condition, tenant profile, realistic rent growth, did just fine. So how I did there? Very close. It was a healthier, more boring, more sustainable investor environment, which frankly is what real estate should be. Final grade. When I called 2025 the year of being healthier, I meant more balance between buyers and sellers, more normal days on the market and negotiations, less drama, more fundamentals. Looking back, that's exactly how the year played out. If 21-22 felt like driving 100 miles an hour in the fog, 25 felt more like cruise control at 65 with better visibility. Not perfect, but a lot saner. If you want to see how this healthier market impacted your home, your neighborhood, or your investments, reach out and we'll break down your specific numbers together. And keep an eye out because my 2026 Bay Area predictions are dropping in the upcoming weeks. Can I make it 5 straight years of accurate predictions? We'll find out this time next year. Want to see that 25 prediction video for yourself? It's in the comments below. Take care.